Hello, welcome everyone. Give you a few seconds here to join. I know we have a lot of participants joining in. And while I do that, I'd like to say hello again and welcome. My name is Lori Candela, and I am so excited to be here with you today and to introduce you to our webinar, Coaching Inspiring Women Leaders to Rise. What an exciting title. We here at the Connecticut chapter of the International Coaching Federation, which we know as ICF, we're excited that today's terrific offering is part of the Raise the Bar webinar, 5 themes, 5 days of learning, a free series of webinars that brings together individual professional coaches representing a wide variety of coaching specialization as part of International Coaching Week. During International Coaching Week, ICF members worldwide celebrate the power of professional coaching to positively impact individuals, organizations, communities, and the world. Connecticut's Raise the Bar webinar started on Monday and continues through Friday, May 8th. So there's still time for you to join a wide array of topics found on our website, ICF-CT.org. So we hope you join us for more. Just a few housekeeping ideas. I know by now many of you are probably zoomed out or experiencing Zoom exhaustion, though there might be some on our call that aren't as familiar with Zoom. So in the first housekeeping idea, it's that you will be able to see and hear the presenters, and they aren't able to see and hear you. So what we're going to do is use the chat box for any thoughts, comments, questions, any issues that you might have regarding the technology, hearing the presenter, etc. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat box. And we've set it up so that it should show where the word to is, all participants and attendees. So if it doesn't, you might want to go on that little drop down caret and drop it down and change it to all panelists and attendees. If for some reason you want to speak to just Allison or me, you can just drop that caret down again and click on all panelists, and we will be the only ones to see your comment or question. So that's, I think, all we have on housekeeping. And I'd like to begin with an introduction to our presenter. Allison Holzer is the co-CEO and Chief Innovation Officer at Inspire Corp, an inspiration strategy firm that partners with organizations to drive business growth and innovation. She is the co-author of Dare to Inspire, Sustain the Fire of Inspiration in Work and Life, which was published by Hachette in November of 2019. This is a book that redefines inspiration as a critical resource in modern work and organizational culture. She passionately speaks and writes on this topic, grounded in her original thought leadership, in executive coaching, emotional intelligence, and applied positive psychology. Allison holds a BA in psychological brain sciences with an emphasis on learning and cognition from Dartmouth College, and dual master's degrees in education and fine art from American University. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Allison Holzer.
Hello. Hi, Lori. Hi, everybody. I want to say thank you so much, Lori, for that introduction. And thank you to the ICF for hosting this amazing International Coaching Week, where we can all come together to learn as coaching practitioners and leaders. I also would be remiss without also saying thank you to the other 2 women leaders who are very important in my life and my work, and they are my 2 co-authors and co-CEOs. Jen Grace Barron, who you see at the top of the circle, and the bottom left, you see Sandy Spataro. And we run our company Inspire Corp together, which is maybe a less traditional model, but certainly one that we're proud of and that we think we do well. So we come together, we collaborate, and we co-wrote a book which I can say is, also maybe not typical. We were literally all in a Google Documents writing at the same time, and it was a really exciting experience. So I know that they're here in spirit, even though they're not here on today's session. And I'm really excited to be speaking today on the topic of inspiration, specifically as it relates to women and coaching women, because coaching is an area of deep passion of mine, and particularly coaching women leaders. And I can imagine that you are all here today because you also really care deeply about this topic. So I'd like to kick us off with just a quick chat box to get all of our fingers warmed up in typing and participating and having your voices in the room. So what do you love? What do you love most about coaching women leaders specifically that, maybe it's different than other types of coaching that you do? So I invite you all to type into the chat box something that you love about it. All right, so we've got a few coming in, and keep typing them in, yeah, so we've got challenging them to see and articulate their value. Yes, helping women to find their voice. I know one of the things that I love too is, really the fact that women are so ambitious and yet also can be community and or family oriented. Helping women be their best selves, Tammy, yes, and bringing their whole selves to the table. Monica, I love seeing growth and increased confidence. Yes, we can all, I think, use boosts of confidence at time, confidence and courage. Understanding their value, Stephanie, yes. Dolores, allowing women to feel empowered, embracing power, leading with empathy as well as professionalism. Sharon, yes. Practicing empathy, Karen. These are wonderful. Yes, so I'm hearing a lot of themes around confidence and supporting and really elevating women leaders to own their value and to bring it into the world, because we have so much to give for sure. Great. So topic today is going to be right on target for that, for sure. I want to kick off first by just saying a little bit about inspiration specifically, and why it's important for women leaders to be effective. Now, when we think about inspiration, it's an important fuel and resource for us to show up, to own our value, and to show up to the table and to really bring forward that confidence. And I think one thing that's special about women leaders is how they are able to support and lift up one another. In other words, we can inspire each other as a community. And I wanted to share with you some examples of this. So women leaders who have inspired me and elevated me recently. And so just in the last month or so, during all of this that's happening right now with COVID-19. So first, I'll just share a quick email I received from someone sort of out of the blue, just talking about Dare to Inspire and saying that, because honestly, during COVID, there's so much going on and so much uncertainty and fear and anxiety. And I received this email where this woman said, we needed you. We need this book. We need these ideas because, we need inspiration now more than ever, is essentially what her email said. And it gave me such a boost and a lift to hear that. Also, you'll see a picture up here of, yes, that's toilet paper. I don't know if you were one of the many to have trouble finding toilet paper during the last 6 weeks. But I share this because our CFO, the CFO of Inspire Corps, her name's Judy Dubai, and she managed to somehow acquire some amounts of toilet paper at one point. And she basically reached out to our team and said, I'm going to mail it to you. Like, tell me what you need. I'm going to get it to you. And she's getting it out to people in the community who need it. And this is a picture of her. One of us had received this, and she sent in a little personal note saying, have a great day from Judy. So to me, that's inspiring as well. Our CFO who's saying, I'm going to reach out and part of this community and give you what you need most right now. A third example that I thought was super inspiring was, you see in front of you a picture of the CEO of a company called Peach. If you haven't heard of the company Peach, learn about them. They're amazing. It's a clothing company, but their mission is really about empowering and elevating women leaders. so also related to this topic. And the CEO of Janet's just really amazing. They pivoted within a couple weeks to produce these cloth masks. And there was such an overwhelmingly positive response that she sent this note saying, you know, within 48 hours, we've had 15,000 requests, and, you know, we're getting them out as fast as we can. And just the agility, her ability to recognize this need in the community and have the whole company really pivot and provide this important resource and put it out in the world, I found it super inspiring and a super big lift. So those are just some of the women leaders who recently have been inspiring to me. I'd like to ask you to think about this for yourself. So think about a mentor or hero or someone who has inspired you recently. And, you know, just first thought, best thought, and, you know, who comes to mind? And if you could, as you imagine that person who comes to mind for you, think of a couple qualities about that person that you find most inspiring. So for example, you know, for me in the women leader examples that I gave, you know, really some of the qualities that stood out to me was their focus on community and caring of others in all three of those examples. And it was also the focus on relationships. And those qualities were super inspiring to me. And I just got a question from Suze, and it's a great question. How do you define inspiring? So Suze, hold on to that. We are actually getting to that next. But I want you to just kind of go with what feels most inspiring to you now. But I will get to how we define inspiration in just a minute. So pop into the chat box a quality about that person who inspired you. What's something that you found inspiring in them? Okay, we've got Tammy saying that person was authentic. Oops, so typing in, compassionate, supportive, holds the sacred. Wow, yeah. Social responsibility, transparent in a way that helps others. Yes, transparency can be super inspiring. Generosity, honesty, being honest and honorable. She can hold her own. She can be bold and honest. A great listener. And sorry, I just realized I said she, but some of your examples may be others. It doesn't necessarily have to be a woman leader who's inspired you recently. Great listener during these difficult times. A courageous, values-driven. Someone who stays calm in a crisis, mentors delegates and teachers to help others rise up. Encouraging, amplifies other strengths. Beautiful. Yes. Okay, hold on. Sorry, 1 second. Oops. Sorry, Lori, I'm just trying to, there we go. Okay, got it.
Got it. Okay.
I had a tech issue with the chat box. It was blocking my screen.
Oh, no.
There's so many great chat responses. I wanted to read them all. Beautiful. So as you think about those qualities and those things that inspire you most, I want you to keep that in mind as we go through today's talk. Okay, we're going to come back to it. So here's our aim for today. We want to kind of stop at three points along the way of our journey together in the next 45 minutes or so. And the first is that, to Suze's point, we want to help you understand inspiration in new ways. So we all have ways that we think about and define inspiration for ourselves. We want to share some new ways to think about it based on the research that we've been doing over the last 5-6 years. We want you to think about how to use inspiration to have your best days more often. So how can you, as coaching practitioners, see this as a tool that you can tap into? And also seeing it as a fuel to lead change, and particularly with your clients. So everything we'll talk about today, I'm talking in the context of coaching. The questions that we're going to pose today are coaching questions that you could also potentially use with your clients. Okay? So let's dig in. Inspiration. All right. So first of all, when you think about inspiration, I mean, why do we even really care about it? I mean, certainly it feels good, yes. But when we think about inspiration, at least in the research that we've done, and we looked at and talked to, at this point, over 100 leaders across different industries and different backgrounds to understand how inspiration works. One of the things that we heard again and again is that it's not just something that feels good. It actually drives extraordinary results. So when people are inspired, they're able to bring more to the table. They're able to think of new ideas. They're able to put forward more energy and attention and productivity towards whatever it is that they're focused on. So it's actually a driver of extraordinary results, in addition to the fact that, yes, it also, feels good. So in my opinion, there's a lot of reasons why we should care about inspiration. And yet, when we first started looking at it to understand inspiration, we went to the research literature, we looked out there, and there's really not much on it. There's not much research on what it is, why it works, and how you can actually create it for yourself instead of waiting for it to happen. Really how you can create it or cultivate it with your clients as well. So we were really excited to be able to pioneer this really and go into the world and try to understand how can we know better how inspiration works in people's lives and in their work so that they can then tap into it more intentionally. So I'm a bit of a Latin nerd, I will admit. And I think that the etymologies of words are really important in terms of how we understand the concept. So the Latin root of the word inspiration actually comes from the word inspirare. Inspirare in Latin literally means to breathe in air. So I'd like for everybody right now, I'd like to invite you, if you can stand up or just sit up a little bit taller in your chair, and just take a nice big deep breath in like this. Like give your whole body a lift when you breathe in. And just feel the oxygen coming in, and also just feel what it feels like when your body kind of goes up and out and you feel that lift. That is what it actually feels like, right, when we are inspired. We have a lift that happens in our bodies. And inspiration can happen at different sort of scales. So you can be inspired in what we call a big I inspiration sort of way. So big I inspiration. This is when you're coaching a client and they have that big aha moment, that sort of life-changing new shift in how they see the world that from this point forward is going to really impact how they show up. That's a big, big I inspiration moment. And they're really important in terms of transformation and for us continuing to grow and develop as human beings and as leaders. But also equally important, even though it doesn't feel as big or as intense as an aha, is what we call these little I inspiration moments. Little I inspiration moments are, those moments where, let's say you have to have a difficult conversation with a colleague, or you have something challenging that you're trying to solve and you've been dragging your feet and it's been hard and you don't know what to do. And you talk to someone, or you do something, or you think about something that gives you that lift where before you were kind of feeling like this, oh, I can't do this. I don't want to have this conversation. I can't solve this problem. And something happens that sparks inspiration that allows you to drive forward with new energy towards it. It may not be that big aha, but it's really important because it's going to move you forward towards whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. So inspiration can be big I, it can be little I. Why is it that it can drive these extraordinary results, or that it can move us forward in these powerful, sometimes life-changing and transformative ways? Well, here's what we found in our research and how we are redefining inspiration. We see it as, and this is based again on our interviews and speaking with different leaders and hearing what inspiration was like for them, that we see inspiration as the intersection of these two important experiences that are happening at the same time. When you're inspired, on the one hand, you have a greater sense of possibility. In other words, your blinders are now open. You are now able to see more solutions than you saw before. You are able to come up with just new ideas. So there's this greater sense of scope and possibility for you. We want this for our clients when we're coaching them, right? This is why we're listening for resonance, because we want them to be seeing greater possibilities for themselves. At the same time, though, it's not just about seeing possibilities, which is, great, but there's also this thing that happens when you're inspired, where you have this boost of courage and confidence to take action. Courage and confidence to take action. We call that invincibility. And we like that word, not because, you know, we want everybody to jump off of buildings like superheroes, but because it kind of feels like that. Even if it's a little boost of new energy towards something that you're trying to do or solve, you feel that little sense of invincibility. I can do this. I can make this new possibility happen. And so when those two come together, that's what it feels like. That's this. I got this new idea and I can do it. That's inspiration. Now, we don't just stop there though, because what we also found in the leaders that we talked to is, you know, many people, they experience inspiration and the idea is, okay, well, that feels great and I got this boost and then it just goes away. It disappears, right? But what we found in our research is that for some individuals and leaders, they are able to sustain it. They are able to replicate it, bring it into their work every single day, tap into it, or when they're not feeling it and they need to, they have a muscle that will allow them to activate it. So they can kind of come back to that feeling of inspiration that drives them forward. That skill, that capability is what we call intentional practice. It's the intentional practice of inspiration. And when you combine that intentional practice of inspiration, then you have what we call sustainable inspiration. It's inspiration that is not just a hot flame that burns out. It's a experience that is turned into a steady state that you can tap into over time. And to be honest, when I think about coaching and, you know, our roles as coaches, I think this is a lot of what we do, what we hope to do with clients, is we want them to be able to create an intentional practice for themselves around inspiration so that they can create this for themselves. But also as coaches, we are there to help them. We are part of our clients' intentional practice, right? Because they show up and they have these coaching sessions with us and we're able to be a part of their practice. So I would love to have, now that you've learned a little bit about what inspiration is and how you define it, could you just each pop into the chat box, you know, what is some way that inspiration has been meaningful to you that has driven you forward? So in this new definition of possibility and invincibility, why is inspiration important to you? All right, so we've got some coming in. Suze, it's your fuel, it's your purpose. Yes, absolutely. It makes what you may seem unachievable achievable. Yes, good. So it opens up these new possibilities. So keep them coming in. It helps you push through roadblocks. Yes. Monica says, it keeps me going. I love the concept of sustainable inspiration. Great. Gives you the courage to try something new, personal or professional. Yes. Amy, helps you do something that's uncomfortable, creates productive resilience and energy, leads to innovation. Thanks, Rachel. Innovation is one of our outcomes of inspiration that we found in the research. Yes, creativity and innovation. When I question my ability to move forward, I'm inspired to tune into that idea of limits. It's my ammunition, keeps me focused, drives and sustains me, pushes me out of my comfort zone. Wow. I got to tell you, your all's responses to this they're inspiring to me, right? You can hear in everyone's responses the power, the energy that sustainable inspiration can bring. Now imagine we want this for our clients, especially for our women leader clients. When you think about at the beginning of this session, what we talked about is how what we want is for women leaders to have more confidence. We want them to understand their value, right? And a way to tap into that is tapping into this power, this energy to drive forward through uncomfortable circumstances, to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. It's almost like the fuel that women leaders need to push through that. Yeah, awesome. Okay. So the other thing that we learned as we did our research on inspiration for the book and for our work is we discovered these different truths of inspiration. And we actually discovered a lot of them, sort of debunking some myths and creating some truths. There's 3 of them that I'm going to share with you today that I think are specifically relevant to coaching. So the first truth that is really important, I think, is that inspiration is highly personal, okay? Highly personal. Now, as coaches, you know this for your clients because you know that your clients are so different in terms of what moves them, what activates that sense of possibility and invincibility. It can be vastly different for different clients. And so in our jobs, in many ways, is to listen for that resonance so that clients can begin, we can mirror back to clients what we're hearing and that they can begin to understand even more for themselves what their unique inspiration fingerprint is. So it's so unique that we think about it like a fingerprint. And when we did our research, I mean, we found, you know, we would ask the question for leaders in terms of what inspires them, and we would get all different kinds of answers, some of them really surprising. For example, we had one leader who, he was a creative executive, and he says, you know, at the end of the week, one of the most inspiring practices that I have is I load up a stack of magazines, about 50 of them. I go to the magazine store and I load up on them, and I create a hot bath, and I sit in the hot bath, and I look through all these images, and I pull out things that matter. And it's like this creative soup of just being present and really noticing what is inspiring to him. Makes a lot of sense for a really creative executive. At the same time, we've had leaders who said to us, the most inspiring thing to me that's ever happened is someone looking me straight in the eye and saying, you know what, you can't do that. That's not possible. You're not capable of doing that. You wouldn't think that'd be very inspiring, right? But when you think about inspiration from the perspective of possibility and invincibility, what happens with many leaders is when they're faced with that challenge, when they're faced with that really direct assertion of you can't do this, what it activates inside of them is a resilience and an energy to say, you know what? Yes, I can do this. And I think a lot of women leaders experience that. I think a lot of women leaders are told, no, you can't do that. No, that's not possible. And so for women who can then tap into that as a source of inspiration to say, yes, I can. Yes, I can. I know my value. I know my confidence. I'm going to do this. Yeah. I'll also add that right now, yes. So what we found is that, you know, when you think about inspiration as a fingerprint, there's a lot of ways that you can access it. And there's these 3 critical pathways that you can use to access inspiration. And again, depending on who you are, you may tap into one of these pathways more so than others. So the first pathway is personal inspiration. These are people who are really inspired by internal things like your values, new perspectives and ideas. You like to go and learn things and research things, and that can really move you and inspire you. The second in the middle you see is inspiration from others. This is inspiration that comes from the people around you, the relationships that you have. And it may be your mentors, your heroes, like the question we asked at the beginning, or it may be your community. It may be an opportunity to be of service to others. So it's more based in the people and your community that's inspiring to you. And then the last is inspiration that comes from circumstances and situations. Some people are really sensitive to their environment, you know, certain colors and light. What's around them is really important. Going out into nature, you know, it evokes inspiration for them. Or going to concerts or places where there are large groups of people can be inspiring to them. And what I'd share with you now is that actually we're seeing a bit now during this difficult time where so many people are suffering, and really, you know, the healthcare community is having to go into the front lines to be of service. And, you know, many people are, by this particular situation that's happening now, inspired to take action. We've got people who are making masks. You've got, you know, and coming up with new product designs that will help the community. And you've got people doing standing ovations for healthcare providers, right? So you see this now that in this situation and circumstance that we're in, that some people are able to really tap into that, to be inspired to take action in new ways. So I'm going to run a poll right now to ask you to think about it. And by the way, there's no right or wrong answer. And yes, we can all be inspired by all three. But if you had to guess, your first place where you would go to feel more inspired, let's say you need inspiration, you're not feeling that way, and you need to activate it, where would be the first place you would go? Would it be to your environment and situations? Would it be to your relationships, people? Would it be to something internal inside of you, your ideas and your values? Where would you go? Great, we've got some answers coming in. About 60% have voted, so I'll give a few more minutes to get your answers in. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share what we have now. Share results. All right. So it looks like we've got diversity across all three for sure. We've got a slightly higher percentage of folks here who look to people and to community for inspiration. And I would make note of this, that I do think that women leaders specifically often are attuned to their communities around them and their relationships. Great. Okay. So the reason why we just shared this with you, these different pathways to inspiration, is because it comes to our second truth about inspiration, which is that a leader's first job is to inspire self. And this is really important, so I'm going to say it again, that a leader's first job is to inspire self. That we cannot hope to inspire others if we are not tapped into what matters to us. And I would add to that as coaching practitioners, that a coach's first job is to help clients do this, right? This is what we do. We help clients re-engage, find resonance, meaning, and inspiration in their works and their lives. That this is essentially what we do. And of course, as coaches, we also have to be inspired. We have to be practicing this for ourselves in order to show up the way that we need to show up for our clients, right? Yeah.
Allison, we have a question in the chat box, and I'm not sure if you'd like to answer this now or hold
Sure.
on. The question is, how is inspiration particularly different for women leaders than men? Men need it too, all people do.
Absolutely, yes. And I will say we'll get to that a little bit in a minute. So I have something coming up where I talk a little bit more about women specifically and some of the trends that we've seen. But the short answer is that, back to the point of inspiration being highly personal, that it really is an individual kind of experience. And so we don't really necessarily want to make broad generalizations, but I do think that there are certain trends that we've noticed that many women are attuned to right now. So I'll get to that in just a minute. It's a great question.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so so how do you get to this idea of, when you say a leader's first job is to inspire self, and as a coach, I need to do this. So how do we do this? Like, how can you begin to tap into that intentional practice of inspiration? How can you begin to see inspiration as a choice and as something that you can begin to activate and replicate for yourself? And one of the ways that we do this, and we've asked this question many, many times over the years, and to help people really understand their unique inspiration fingerprint. One of the ways that we do this is by having people think about their best days, because think about this as coaches too, what we really want our clients is to experience. We want them to have their best days more often, right? We want clients to have their best days more often, whatever that means to them, best days. And so I'd like you to think right now about a recent best day or a best moment, because sometimes best day can be a high bar, and to be honest, given the current state of affairs, we're all experiencing a lot of stress right now. We're experiencing a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity, and all of that is normal. So it may be more like a best moment, within the last few months, or a best day. But think about a time when you experienced this, when you felt like you were really on, when you felt like you were in the flow, when you were able to bring forward your strengths and your talents in the way that you want to be. You were able to show up as the kind of coach and the kind of leader that you want to be. And when you have this situation in mind, I'd like you to kind of go there, like you're watching a movie in your head, and notice what was happening around you in that moment, but even you could think about what happened leading up to that moment. Like what happened when you woke up first thing in the morning that contributed to that day, you know, maybe being better than a usual day. Was there something that happened right before that moment? What's happening during that moment? And what I'd like you to think about are 3 things that you think really contributed to that day or moment being so great. Like what was it that you were able to tap into or activate or have happen that brought forward your best? And I'd like you to ask to share just one at least of those things into the chat box for us to all see, if you're comfortable sharing. And as you all are beginning to type in, I will share that something that contributes to me having a best day or best moment is what I call unstructured time. So there's some breathing room in my calendar in the day to have some time to reflect or to pause, to think. I'm not kind of stacked so tightly during the day. That's a really critical piece for me. All right, we have folks coming in. Being prepared, yes. So feeling like you've got a plan and you can activate that. Tammy says, starting my day connecting with nature. Yes, beautiful. Music. Yes, music is a powerful driver of emotions. Writing. So if there's writing in your day, Dolores says, physical needs are planned for and met. You're excited about the project and there's a margin for reflection and creativity. Yes, Rachel, that's the unstructured time. I hear you. I need that as well. Being outside in beautiful places. Clarity and support from trusted people. Yes. Presence in nature. Being connected to my body. A deep sense of being settled, even if there's a lot going around me. Nice. Beautiful. Okay, so I won't be able to read all of them, but these are wonderful, really great examples. And it sounds like you have a sense of what's important to you and what can give you, what can contribute to you having that best day. Now, the reason why this is important for us to begin to notice about ourselves and to certainly help our clients notice, this is what we do with our clients as well, we help them notice what contributes to their best days, is because when we know what contributes to it, we could begin to intentionally practice. We can begin to start to integrate and create those moments more often so that we can activate inspiration when we need it rather than perhaps waiting for it to happen. So we talked about these 3 different pathways towards inspiration. Notice as you answered the question, was your answer more in line with personal inspiration engines or relationships or situations? And what I'd like to show you now, hopefully without being too overwhelming, is that within each of these 3 pathways of inspiration, personal, situations, and inspiration from others, we found in our research that there are 18 different, what we call engines of inspiration. So on the left-hand column, what you see are, within the personal engines of inspiration, you see 6 different more specific engines. So you see values and purpose, progress and achievements. So this was I have a plan for the day that I'm able to accomplish. New perspectives, activating strengths, unstructured time. That was the example of some breathing room in your calendar. Movement, presence. So getting up and doing things. The middle column is the inspiration from others. And you see under this column 6 engines of inspiration: mentors and heroes, serving others, vulnerability. I heard that in a few examples around being transparent with others. A sense of belonging, being a part of a community. Getting a lift. This is getting a boost from others. Sharing a mission with your team or with your community or with your family. And then finally on the right side, you see these are, this is within the column of inspiration that comes from situations. And you see inspiring environments around you. This is nature, the colors in your office. Witnessing excellence. This is why we love watching the Olympics. We're really inspired when we see excellence in others. Shared group experiences is what we talked about earlier. Right now, that we're all experiencing a difficult shared group experience that some people are tapping into to be inspired to take action in different ways. Overcoming constraints. This is the example that I gave of the CEOs who said the most inspiring things are when someone looks at me in the eye and says, "You can't do that. That's not possible." And they say, "Yes, I can." Making a difference in the lives of others, and then grief, loss, or failure. Oh, and I'll just say the reason why making a difference is in the situations category is this particular engine is about when you see situations that uniquely call for your expertise, right? So it's more about the situation that is calling you forward versus serving others, which is in the middle column, and that's more about being of service to others. So as you look at this list, I'd like you to kind of take note again, like at your own example of best days. And what is an inspiration engine, a specific engine within these that you think that you tap into regularly, something that you really like and you find effective in terms of inspiring you? And give a shout out in the chat box on that. I'd love to see a bit of the diversity across the different engines that you tap into. And feel free if you want to list more than one, that's fine too. So one of the things, back to the question earlier of, women and inspiring women leaders, the engines that you see highlighted here are some of the engines that we found and that we hear most often that women leaders talk about as being really important. And we pulled a couple within each of these different categories. So values and purpose, and progress and achievements. These are engines we hear a lot from women, that they need to know their purpose. They need to be clear on this. They need to align often to organizations, the organizational purpose. And the progress and achievement. I think we hear a lot about women leaders being very ambitious, and that progress and achievement is highly inspiring to them. In the middle column, mentors and heroes. As women, we need to have mentors and heroes that we can look up to that give us that lift. It's one of the reasons why I asked that question at the very beginning, because we need to know who those people are for us and reach out to them. Vulnerability. I'm sure you're all familiar with Brene Brown's amazing work and research. We believe in the power of it. Women can, I think, based on the literature that I know in emotional intelligence, women are able to tap into their emotions and express them and share vulnerability in powerful ways. And that is both inspiring to them because they're able to share, but also inspiring to others around them. And then in the situations category, we do find that shared group experiences is something that's come up a lot, that women like to be a part of a larger community and participating there and contributing to, and overcoming constraints, right? As women, we have constraints that other groups don't have. And so when we're faced with those constraints, what do we do? And how do we gain the courage to overcome them? And how do we see those obstacles in front of us as challenges to say, and as sources of inspiration to say that we can overcome our comfort, get out of our comfort zone and we can overcome them.
Allison, we have a question that came up.
Yeah.
Where would learning fit? This is a huge inspiration.
Yes. So learning, we really see it as fitting under the new perspectives engine of inspiration. So we talk about that in the book. An example that we give is the Steve Jobs, who went to the calligraphy class when he had dropped out of his college at that point, and he went to a community college and he took a calligraphy class just because he thought it would be fun to learn. And that ended up being this whole new perspective that brought to the table that then contributed to his ideas for the computer. So when we learn, when we're learning new things, we're able to create new connections between ideas that can be incredibly inspiring. So that's where I would put it. Great question, thanks. And I'm just looking now in the chat box to see some of the engines that you all mentioned. So we've got a lot of values and purpose, strengths, serving others, making a difference. Yeah. Suze was saying, yeah, that what you tap into more is personal inspiration, but when asked which one you leverage more, and now my face is blocking my screen so I can't see what you're saying there. When you asked which one you leverage more, it was more situational. Yes, good, that's a great insight. Movement and presence. So Natasha, movement and presence, knowing that, you know, how important is it to you to take those movement breaks and to bring in, you know, whether it's exercise or even body language, you know, when you're working with clients. Awesome. Shared group experiences. Yep. Cool. Okay. So what we see here, I think, is a lot of diversity across the different engines of inspiration. And I think that's really important because, to the point we made earlier, inspiration is highly personal. It's like a fingerprint. One more thing that I wanted to read to you all is, and it's really specific to this time, and I have her permission to read this. And it's an email that I received from a woman leader named Marjorie Golden, and she's the chief of infectious disease at Yale New Haven Hospital. So you can imagine that, you know, she's dealing with a lot right now on the front lines. And as I'm reading this, you know, this is a woman leader on the front lines right now in this moment when we're in a crisis situation. A lot of people will say, well, what does inspiration have to do with a crisis? Well, it's really important. It's really important, especially, you know, as a way to fuel us to come together, to not get burned out, to be able to give our best to the situation. So I'd like you to just listen to, in this example, what engines of inspiration you hear her tapping into for herself and for her team. So this is Marjorie Golden, Yale New Haven Hospital. We are obviously very busy, but my group has been absolutely amazing. They've been great at implementing new policies and procedures, which may change literally several times a day. We're trying very hard to communicate as a group, at least twice a day, and at the end of the huddle, to acknowledge everyone's contributions. There's a wonderful sense of community, and everyone is poised to help each other out. For example, one of our PAs was in Costco and bought extra baby wipes, even though her kids are full grown, because she knows other people in the group have babies and might run out. Also, we've shared babysitters in case childcare becomes an issue. And someone even took an initiative to order extra thermometers so we can screen more people before they walk into our clinics. So just out of curiosity, pop in, you know, what are some of the engines that you see her activating for herself and on her team in this example? What do you hear? Serving others. Yes, for sure. Serving others. What else? Belonging. Yes, she talked about we come together as a group. Shared mission. We have our huddles. We know what our purpose is. Serving others, mentoring, belonging. Yes, she's being responsive and adaptive, for sure. Yes, good. Exactly. Yeah, I think you all caught all the ones that I had. The only other one I had on here was the overcoming constraints, right? That her team, witnessing excellence. Yes, she was acknowledging her team and getting a lift, giving a lift and getting a lift. Beautiful. So the hope and in this exercise that you just experienced, you know, I think as coaches, we're doing this all the time. We're listening to our clients speak, and we're listening for the specific engines that drive them and inspire them. We're mirroring it back to them so that they can then hear that more for themselves. It becomes louder for themselves so that they can tap into that more often. And we do that because we know inspiration is a driver to help them be successful and also to rise above, as we said at the beginning. So many people said the importance of going beyond your comfort zone and activating courage. Beautiful. So this brings us to the third truth about inspiration I'm going to share with you all today, which is that inspiration, like all emotions, is contagious. Inspiration is contagious. So I learned this when I worked for many years with scholars at the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, that emotions are contagious because we're social human beings and we have mirror neurons in our brains and we pick up on each other's body language and our feelings. And, you know, as coaches, we do this too. We listen with our bodies. We listen you know, to our own bodies to pick up on what our clients are experiencing and feeling as well. And so coming back to this idea that a leader's first job is to inspire self. As coaches, because inspiration is contagious and because we want our clients certainly to feel inspired, we have to be inspired ourselves, right? It's part of what we do. It's part of what we do. So, last and final question for you to think about. If inspiration is contagious, and as we mentioned at the very beginning, specific to women leaders, and as came up even later in the call when I asked you all about coaching women leaders, this idea of community, of relationship, of being supportive, part of a supportive community where as women, we support each other to flourish and to rise up and to build each other's confidence. This is part of what we do for each other. So I want to leave you and ask you the question, who are you going to lift? So think about the week ahead for you, and who are you going to give a lift to? Right? Getting a lift is one of our inspiration engines. Who are you going to give a lift to? But beyond that, because vulnerability is also important as women, being able to acknowledge that we also sometimes have difficult days and difficult times. Who in the week ahead are you going to ask for a lift? Who are you going to reach out to and say, I need you. I need your help. And I just invite you to think about that for yourself, jot it down on a piece of paper, and I want to encourage you to practice this week. Intentionally give somebody a lift and intentionally ask somebody for a lift. Okay. So this brings us to some of our closing ideas here, the first of which is that the world needs your inspiration as coaches out there in the world, working with clients, helping clients to see more for themselves and bring more into the world. We spend on average approximately 90,000 hours at work in a lifetime. 90,000 hours, that's a lot of time, right? And when you think about that, when you think about even if just 5% or 10% more of those hours were ones where you were able to bring forward inspiration, greater possibility, greater invincibility, that energy towards what you're doing. Imagine the difference that can make, not just for you, but for those around you, in your families, in your world of work, right? It's an important driver for us. And when you think about it as an intentional practice, you can tap into it. You can practice it and you can build it more for yourself, your inspiration fingerprint. So I'm going to close with this idea that the world needs your inspiration, and that this is an important part of what we all do as coaches. And particularly for women leaders that we are supporting when we're coaching women leaders, this is something that we do that's really important to help women with many of those things that we talked about in the front end of this call, the getting outside the comfort zone, calling forward courage, stepping into confidence. We can help each other do this. So with that, I'm going to open up the end. We've got a few minutes here for Q&A. I'm going to pull the chat box back up. Whoops, sorry. We'll get to this in a minute. Sorry. Let me go back to the other slide. Nope, go back. There we go. Okay. So let me pull up the chat box and see. All right. So any questions, you can feel free to, I guess we have a Q&A box and a chat box. You can put them in either place. Okay, so I see one question here from Tammy. Can you share a bit about how inspiration might show up in a person that's more introverted? Yeah, okay. So feels very extroverted energy value. This is great. Great question, Tammy. And by the way, I'm an introvert, so I can relate to this a lot. I think that, personality, gosh, we could do a whole session on personality and, express it. So feeling emotions versus expressing emotions. So one of the things that I learned when I worked with the EI Center at Yale is really that difference between what you feel and what you express. So an introverts may feel things in big ways, but it may not always show up in big ways. And I've actually had to work on this myself because I do a lot of presentations and talks, and I videotape myself and look at it. And, a lot of times I'll look at something and say, wow, I was feeling really excited and enthusiastic, but I was looking like this. I wasn't showing it. And so there are times when I call it dialing up the volume on, kind of what I'm feeling on the inside, so that the purpose being so that other people can feel it along with me, you know? So I don't think that introverts experience inspiration less often. They may not express it outwardly as much. So that's my short answer. But I would also say that when you look at the inspiration fingerprint, you know, if you're an introvert versus extrovert, I think clearly some of those engines of inspiration are going to resonate more for different groups. You may not be, if you're an introvert, someone who wants to go for the large group experiences for inspiration as much as maybe reading books that cultivate new perspectives, or unstructured time, right? That gives you breathing room to kind of think and reflect. So I hope that's helpful. Yeah, and introverts, Judy says, can get inspiration from solitary activities. Yes, going out in nature, taking a long walk. Yeah, absolutely. That was a great question. Thank you. Okay, what else? Any other questions we have here? Any in the chats? I like, Rachel said, can we start an ICF Connecticut Women's Facebook group? Yes, I'm on board with that, Rachel. Email me afterwards. I'm happy to help you out with that, or join in. So if you have any other questions, go ahead and keep popping them into the chat box. But as we're doing this, I want to just share a couple other things before we close. So one is that, you know, as Lori so kindly mentioned, we published our first book November 2019 of last year. It's called Dare to Inspire. And we'd like to offer you all, we have a 20% discount on the book if you'd like to check it out and try it. I've had many people tell me that this book is a great resource for clients, for coaching clients, that they will have their coaching clients, you know, read a chapter or two, and then they bring in discussion into their coaching sessions. There's lots of activities and exercises in the book that you will see are kind of like coaching questions. So I think it's actually a really valuable resource for coaches, even though we didn't necessarily write it specifically for coaches. So I hope you'll check it out. And you can, the QR code that you see right now, I've been told that you can lift up your phone somehow and it will magically pull up. You just put your phone in front of the QR code and it magically pulls up the link where you can order it. But there's also, you see the link right here, and we'll put it, Lori, if you could pop the link right now into the chat box for folks as well, that would be great. So you can also just link to it there if you want to go old school version. I haven't quite learned the world of QR codes yet, but apparently they're great. And then I would also just add, you know, for folks who want to stay connected or learn more about, you know, the inspiration as a driver within leadership and teaming. Inspire Core, we have a newsletter where we post lots of information. We have lots of great resources on our website. We also do a monthly communication out that talks about different leadership and inspired teams kinds of topics. And for you all specifically as coaches, coaching practitioners, on my Twitter account, which is the handle AA Holzer, I post coaching questions, usually a few times a week. And they're coaching questions that are both for people to just reflect on themselves, or they may be coaching questions you want to pull into your own toolkit for your clients. So if you're interested in coaching questions, you can find me there. Okay, I'm just going to pop back in and see if there are any other questions that came up. Thanks, Lori, for posting the link. All right. I don't see any other questions, so I think we can close it out. Lori, is there anything that you wanted to say to close?
There is, and I also wanted to add the resource link. Do we want to put that in the chat box as well?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right.
So we have, thank you for reminding me of that. We have a little downloadable handout resource for all of you today. So if you found these questions and activities that we did helpful with the engines of inspiration, and you want to be using these in your work with clients, and you know, to the point earlier, you can use them with all clients. Doesn't have to just be women leader clients, but you know, I think it can work for everybody. But so we have a link that you can go into and download the handouts and worksheets there. So we hope you'll check it out and find that resource useful for you in your practice. So I think
okay.
Can link to book be sent to everybody? I saw that, Bernice. Bernice, we just popped it into the chat box. So if you go into the chat function, you can see the link there.
All in there. Well, Allison, I want to thank you so much for this very inspiring presentation. And I know you've given us all a lot to think about. And I know for sure that I can't wait to read your book. I want to thank everyone on the call for joining us today. ICF Connecticut is a resource for finding coaches and speakers within a wide range of expertise. So don't forget to check the Coaching Week page at ICF-CT.org for more events just like the one we saw today, and other events as well that we have to offer you and your organization. We hope to see you again on another webinar, and thank you. Be safe, be well.
Thank you again to the Connecticut ICF chapter and for the International Coaching Federation for hosting these events this week and for hosting this. So thank you, and thanks for you all for being here and being so engaged as a group. Take care.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, Allison.
Thank you.